analysis, from your analysis as civil society budget advocacy group, what are some of the glaring issues that are in the latest Auditor General's report?
Of course, there are so many issues, but we try to look at those that are pertinent and very close to people's lives. For example, we know that the Auditor General has persistently said that the rising debt burden is beginning to hurt us. And he knocks out one key area that is very critical and very important. And one of it is that although we know that the debt now has, by June 2024, that the debt had increased to 115 trillion, one of the key major areas is that because of this huge debt, the amount of money we are spending to service is also increasing. And he gave us a number. He says every 24 shillings out of 100 shillings we collect from URA goes directly to interest payment. And an indication means that now we have less money on ourselves before we pay debt. And for us, once we analyze this, we are finding out that our debt, the way we incur debt, the way we contract debt, could actually be improved. For example, we are seeing a shift from concessional loans. These are loans that are long-term. These are loans that have got a bigger grace period. These are loans that are actually sometimes free interest rate. We are now seeing domestic borrowing increasing again. So now the portfolio is that 51% of our debt portfolio is domestic debt. Domestic debt is very expensive, interest rates above 10%. The grace period is very short, 2 to 3 years, you need to start paying. And also the repayment period is like 10 years only. So if you have a project you are implementing, it is within 5 or 6 years, and you're supposed to pay within 5 years, I can tell you that you are going to start paying back that loan even before the project is finished. So that is the kind of challenge that we are currently in, and the Auditor General is actually raising a red flag on that.
You are worried about the debt situation, but when you speak to people at the Ministry of Finance, they actually tell you, no, we are not doing badly, we are still very okay. We are among those countries that are still allowed to borrow, and we still borrow because we have some serious projects that we need to undertake. For instance, the SGR, that's the standard gauge railway, we know we are going to borrow for it. Sometimes it's very difficult to understand whether you people are telling us the truth or not. Who should we believe? The government is saying our debt situation is healthy.
So we measure the risk of the debt risk that we look at is in 3 categories. You are either a low risk, medium risk, or a very high risk. We were a low risk 5 years ago. We shifted to a higher risk country in terms of debt sustainability. So we are remaining only one level to be at a higher risk. Now, I think the argument here for me is that borrowing is not bad. And I think Kenneth, we talked about it. If government borrows 1 million and it misquanders it, it misuses it, I would be as mad, I would be as angry as anything. If a government borrows 100 trillion and it uses it perfectly very well, I would be the happiest. So the question now is, all what we are borrowing, what are we using it for? And the government will say, we are going to borrow SGR, what you said. But we know that the government has not fixed its weaknesses in terms of implementing projects on time, but also on budget. Let me just give you one example, and even it was in today's news. That and this is where the problem is. That because of our inability to implement projects on time, we are incurring losses. The Auditor General is actually telling us that for only the road projects that he has looked at, a few road projects that he has looked at, he has found out that actually that we are spending around 67 billion in terms of commitment fees. What does that mean? It means that we borrowed money, we are unable to utilize it, and how we are paying fines for the money that we borrowed. That's number one. Number two, we contracted companies and we are unable to pay them on time, and they've also started charging us fines in terms of interest not being done. So that's when I say we actually need to fix that. if we fix that, I wouldn't be minding about the way we are borrowing right now, because I shouldn't borrow at the same time incur expenses on the money I have not even utilized, and yet I'm not even benefiting from the project.
Once again, it's very hard to believe you. You know, this borrowing is always sanctioned in the parliament. There's always a debate on the project that is going to be carried out. And the MPs provide information, government explains, and then they sanction, they allow the borrowing to take place. Meaning that it is a people-centered decision to actually borrow. There are projects, road projects, schools, many things if you look at why government actually borrows. So it's very difficult for you for someone to understand when you say we actually borrow when we are not ready to utilize the money. How can that happen? How come we have not seen any heads rolling?
Okay, I think that's a very good question. Is the person who appoints accounting officers, I think, should be also in a position to disappoint them. If you have a project like we have another classic example, the Busegampiji Express Highway, a project of of 500 billion to be completed in 3 years. 7 years down the road, it has consumed 1 trillion, and it's at 40% performance. Now we are borrowing another trillion to have the project completed. What went wrong? Who should account for that? So these are the things that we ask, that the appointing authority should be able to look into these things and say, come on, what happened? How should we fix this particular type of a problem? Then you find that there are projects that have been abandoned, or projects that are underutilized or delayed at all. Look at Karuma. Karuma is performing at 30%. These are not my numbers. These are Auto General's numbers. It's performing at 30% capacity. Just imagine. Yet, we are here suffering from road shedding. And because of this, we are even paying expenses out of that. So you have electricity you're not using, but you're also spending on it. So for me, I think we need to overhaul. I have seen Ministry of Finance trying to put in some stringent measures. I think we can do more than that.
Like what?
For example, the first one, one of the biggest things, one of the major things we need to do, number one, is to measure the performance of accounting officers who are manning these projects. If we find out that you are not performing to the level that we need, step aside, we get somebody else. Secondly, there shouldn't be any project that we should be able to borrow for if it is not ready to go.
Ready to start.
Ready to start. Because if you recall, there are some projects, the Auditor General was telling us last year, that some projects don't have profiles, don't have visibility studies, don't even have a concept note, but the project is already on file. So it means that somebody just said, I want to start this road, and before you go 2-3 kilometers, you find that actually you don't have a right of way on that particular road. And then it stays, or that project gets stuck. That is another area that we need. So we need to fix that. No project should get into our system if it is not ready to start. That's another important element. Then costing these projects is another issue that we need to look at. If you look at, the Auditor General is telling us that when he compares roads only in the Kampala City Council Authority, he's just comparing the cost of building roads. There is a very huge variation already in terms of that. So we need also to ensure that we have a standardized price list for government. How much does a kilometer in Uganda cost to be constructed of any particular level? How much does it cost? Let us also know that. Yes, we know there are variations. We know there are variations in terms of the soil component, the softness, the topography, but we need that kind of standardized to know this is what it costs for this country. But if you have a project that has got a blank check to put any amount of money on it, and the prices cannot actually be verified or compared to anything else, then we are losing money. And I think for me, in that way, we can be able to have proper project implementation.